Hello everyone, and welcome to Module 15, Ad Optimization. We're going to be covering today Ad Optimization Review. We're currently in the optimization strategies in terms of our roadmap. In future modules, we will be covering scaling strategies. And just as a reminder from our last module, if you haven't watched it already, I highly recommend doing so because we'll be reviewing some of the results from the changes we made from the previous module. And just as a reminder, some of the optimizations that we follow in terms of our rules are cutting ads with no result if spend is higher than your average cost per result on that ad. We also, look for new ads that get very little delivery over time because those that don't get any purchases are not likely going to perform. So if you launch a new ad across multiple ad sets and it's getting, a couple dollars spend, very little spend across all the ad sets, but when you take the average spend for all of those and combine them and you have no purchases, it's a good indicator that it's likely not going to, perform. And then number 3, if the ad only has one result and is below your break-even return on ad spend, and it's above your average cost per result, then you would cut that ad. And so those are some of the rules that we followed here. And this is the before that we came into that account on the last module. We had gone through each of these individual ad sets. We had made some cuts and some changes so that way we could start to improve the overall return on ad spend, where this account at that time had 96 purchases, a 1.51x ROAS, average cost per result was around $32, and his break even is a 1.45, so barely above the profit margin line over an 8-day period here. But there was some promising results here because we saw that there was a few ad sets that had a 2x ROAS, which we know that, there's some opportunity there for us to optimize and get the account up to that number. And so after we made those changes and we gave it some time to optimize, you'll notice that the return on ad spend took an increase. It went from a 0.5 to a 1.95. So big improvement overall because that's, a 0.5 increase, which makes a huge difference, especially when you're, if your profit margin's around the 1.45 mark, well, a 0.5 increase, everything above that is automatically going to be profit. So that's super awesome, right? So what we ended up doing was we made some changes and, you'll notice that we went from the CBO level over here on the before where it says campaign budget optimization and we switched it to the ad set level. That essentially means we just moved budget from the campaign where it optimizes on CBO and switched it to ad set and allowed it to optimize on ABO. The reason we made that change was very specific. There was more than 5 ad sets in the campaign. We found, that 3 to 5 ad sets worked best with CBO, and in this case there was more than 5. There's about 6 here, so it's better to automatically adjust the budget on the ad set level once you have more than 5. And so essentially what we then did from there is once we switched to the ad set level, we had more control over deciding where our budget went. So what we did is we used a strategy where we shift budget towards the highest performing audience, which is essentially the highest return on ad spend, and we took away budget from the lowest return on ad spend. And you'll notice this is pretty stark difference here, where at the bottom here we have a 1x ROAS, and so we're only giving it 30 daily. The one above that has a 1.49, so we're only giving it 55 daily. The one above that gets a little bit better, 1.77, so we give it 90 daily, 1.83, so we give it 105 daily, 2.13, 105, and so forth. As the return on ad spend goes up, we're moving spend up the ladder. So we're basically following the highest performing audiences. Now in this case, what we could do is start to decrease California Stack even further by taking it down to, say, 15, taking Cape Cod down, another 10, taking Margaritaville down to, 80, and start decreasing spend some additional dollars from there, and then increasing these others, taking these up where we move that spend over, where we add 20 here, we add 30, we add another 50 here, and allow our return on ad spend average to get pulled up because we have higher performing audiences that will lift our ROAS even higher. So there's an opportunity to get this account even further. We could probably bring this account, just by shifting budget alone to a 2.2 automatically. Just by shifting some additional dollars over, it's very likely this account would rise to a 2.2 just from moving additional ad spend. And so some of those ad optimization changes were, we cut underperforming ads. So we followed these specific rules where we have the 3 rules here. And we switched from CBO to ABO because there was more than 5 audiences. We decreased spend on underperforming audiences once we switched to ABO. We didn't just evenly place the budget. We strategically moved budget out of the underperforming and shifted it towards the higher performing. And that led us to number 4. Because we shifted that to the higher performing audiences, we were able to get a much higher return on ad spend. And then we also gave the system 7 days to optimize after those changes. Those were a lot of changes, so a lot of the account, has to adjust from there. So we gave it a full 7 days, to fully optimize, and the results of that was a full 0.5x increase. And if we gave it some more time, we'd likely see a much higher increase over time. Some of the results from that were the comparison from the first period, the before, is an 8-day period. The comparison after is looking at a 5-day period. So we're actually looking at a shorter time frame for the comparison, which is really interesting because we have even better results on that, shorter time frame. So a 1.51x ROAS over that 8-day initial period, and then we took it to a 1.95x ROAS. We went from doing 96 purchases to 118 purchases. And what's really key here is we spent roughly, 3,000 plus on this initial period, and then on that 5-day period, we only spent around $2,200. So nearly $1,000 less ad spend, but we achieved 118 purchases. We actually increased purchases and spent $1,000 less. Not only that, but his profit margins were roughly 188 profit from that specific attribution, right? There could be a lot more attributed results that just didn't get attributed in the ads manager. But from what we pull from looking directly at the ads manager, 188 profit, right, from those initial, week. And then after we made those changes, $1,100 in profit. That's $1,100 profit. That's about a 10x increase in profit, right? So that's a huge difference, and we decreased by $1,000. Now, if we were to compare this as an 8 to 8-day average, here's what ends up happening. We end up going from 96 purchases to 188 purchases, essentially doubling our entire purchase volume, which is incredible. And not only that, but because we went from a 1.5 to a 1.95, our profit went from 188 to essentially another 10x, which is 1,700 in this case, profit, right? So that's what's really incredible. About a 0.5 can make a huge difference, right? Especially if you're spending at scale. And every little percentage really matters in these cases. So, it might not seem like a lot, but a 0.44 made a huge difference here. So always look for ways that you can subtly increase your ROAS. You don't need to go in and just, identify ways to just automatically jump it by a 10x ROAS, right? A more realistic approach would be getting, minor improvements over a long period of time. So that way it's consistent growth that can handle the scale over time. Because we actually increased spend from this period, right? We're spending more now too. So therefore, we're able to also get a high return on ad spend. So that's essentially telling us that not only are we improving results, not only are we making the ads more consistent, not only are our audiences getting more tuned in, but we're also able to consistently scale up our spend, scale up our profit, and scale up our ROAS. There's a winning factor on every single level here because we made all of the right decisions. And there's still room to improve from a 1.95. That is not the ceiling here. A 2.2 can still happen just from a budget shift. We haven't even got into the fact of turning off, say, that bottom audience. If we shift this budget away, turn off that bottom audience, we're automatically going to be at a much higher return on ad spend. And then if we look at our best performing ad out of those, ad sets, and we find a little way to make a small tweak, whether it's in the headline, the creative, maybe brighten up the creative, maybe zoom in a little bit more on the creative. We know that zoom cropping from previous modules where you just zoom in, by 20 to 30 to 50%, on the product, you can see a much higher return on ad spend. So if we did a zoom crop on maybe the top performing ad, we could even see as high as a 2.5 consistently. So we know that there is room to continue growing from here with the right optimization changes. Now there will be fluctuations, day to day, but the important thing is to look at a longer period of time to ensure that you are improving week over week. And so those are the primary things that we covered. And, the next steps from here would be looking to make more strategic budget shifts. You see what's a low performing ROAS, you slowly shift away budget into the ones that are getting a much higher return on ad spend. And then you'll start to see your results getting better. And if we look at this before shot, I mean, we're talking about a $32 cost per purchase. And the after, $18.80. I mean, we practically sliced this entirely in half. So that's the incredible thing here. And we improved our, return on ad spend pretty significantly, all while spending less as well and making more money, which is absolutely awesome for this client, right? And once we make these additional changes where we start to look at ways to get to a higher return on ad spend, we're going to see even more profit. We're going to see even more ways to scale, because once you open up a high return on ad spend, you have additional room to scale up behind that. And so that allows you to get much better results over time. And these are the changes that are being data driven. There is no feelings based on any of this. People could feel day to day that it's not working, but if you look at the data over a period of time, you'll see very well that it actually is. There might be a few bad days in here, but there's enough good days that are lifting up, allowing us to get a higher return on ad spend. So you set your emotions aside, you focus on the data aspect, and you give yourself, a clear vision of where you want to take your return on ad spend. This keeps you more organized because you know exactly which ad sets are performing. You know that you have ads in there that are being more consistent. You know what your spend is. You know what your profit's becoming, and it allows you to be at ease and focus just on the main thing, which is getting yourself more revenue, more purchases, more profit, and a better return on ad spend, allowing you to, entirely separate the emotions and make managing Facebook ads a very subtle and easy game. And this is what separates, the experts and, the techie and savvy business owners from the individuals who are emotional and don't understand what's going on and are reckless and will turn off something that's going really well and will make changes when they shouldn't be. And that's really the main difference here, is getting that data-driven vision under control. And once you have that, there's a light at the end of the tunnel that you always know that you're heading towards. And this allows you to constantly make improvements over time, allowing you to get much better results. So I hope you enjoyed this specific module where we did the ad optimization review, and I hope to see that you're going to make some changes. And please let me know, how the optimizations are going for you after you make your round of cuts and make some small tweaks to get a much higher return on ad spend. So I'll see you on the next module. Bye.